Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week, our hosts will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their business to success in the ever-competitive business climate.
Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Today I have a very special guest all the way from Romania. Arnold Beekes is the founder of The Art of Unconditioning, where he helps individuals break free from societal pressures to unleash their true potential. With over 40 years of experience in technology, leadership, psychology, and personal development, Arnold specializes in improving brain fitness and empowering professionals to overcome limitations. His approach helps people reclaim their uniqueness, boosting performance, creativity, and well-being. Arnold's mission is to help individuals dismantle mental and emotional straitjackets that prevent them from fully living their own life. Arnold, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Before we get into what you do, tell us how you got here. Are you from a family of business owners, entrepreneurs? What sort of drives that spirit?
Totally not. My father worked in the government. He was first a military officer. That relates to where I'm talking about fitting in and conformity. And later on, my father became a judge in the legal system, so also government, so nothing related to business. But the reason I am in business is because I saw that he didn't like his work, and it was not something, and I was like, well, maybe it's cool to work in business. So that is why I ended up in business.
Yeah. I'm much the same, so I totally resonate with that. Let's move right into what you get into, and one of the primary reasons I wanted to have you on this show is to talk about psychology, mental illness, mental wellness, brain fitness. Why do you and in America, at least for sure, we are experiencing by empirical data probably the highest level of recorded mental illness, various versions of that, maybe ever. A lot of people on prescription drugs to try to fix that. What do you think is the primary reason for maybe why we're seeing this mental illness exploding?
Well, it's all over the world. So it's unfortunately not only limited to the US, it's everywhere. From India to Europe, it's everywhere. And the reason is it's not black and white. There are a couple of reasons, but one of the main reasons is the use of a smartphone in combination with social media.
Mm-hmm.
And that also has an impact on the lack of sleep. And the other main reason I would say is that we are pathologizing problems, emotions into a disease. Yeah, so everything has become a disease, and in this case, a mental disease.
Mm-hmm.
And that has gone, I would say, a little bit out of hand, because things which 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago would not have been labeled a mental illness are now in the phase where they have become this label, whereas previously you wouldn't get that label. You understand what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about millions and millions of people. And I try to be very careful in using AI, but I used AI very recently to do that research for me. Is like, how is it possible that so many more people are labeled with mental illness? Is that because there have been more labels, which is the case? There's something which is called the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual for Mental Disorders. That's where you have all kinds of features and characteristics of things. That has been expanded, but it said, no, it's not the case. And then I thought, Well, maybe it's because the population growth. Because, well, we have grown from, let's say, 1900 until now. If you look at the graph of the population growth, it really goes like this. And huge growth. So that could be the cause of more people with mental illness because there are more people.
Okay.
That's totally not the case. So it's got to do, well, with diagnosing, putting people in a box where previously they would say, well, go for a walk in the park. And now they say, you're depressed. Or a child. There are a lot of young people who's labeled ADHD, is like attention deficit disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's normal for, well, young boys, young girls to be distracted and to be curious and want to do this and want to do that and focus on all these different areas. And now the parents are like, no, he's not focusing. Well, that's normal if you're a kid of 6 or 8 or 7 or whatever, is to try all different things. And now people are labeling, no, he's ADHD. We got to give you medicine. There's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you.
Right. So I think that was one of the things I wanted to dig into is, I mean, you sort of got there, is the pharmaceutical industry. In the United States, you might not know this, maybe you do, is that you can advertise. These pharmaceutical companies can advertise, and that's one of the biggest sources of revenue for, like, let's say, any of the media companies like Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. They're just notorious for, okay, they're going to take all this money from all of these different pharmaceutical companies and then advertise all over. In the UK, for example, you can't do that. It's illegal. And there's some legislation that was talked about ahead of this new administration coming in, of maybe they would do that with RFK coming in. So I gotta wonder, like, what's your take on how much, if there was a pie chart in front of us, or like a percentage, what percentage of this is maybe just driven by pure money and that they're trying to push drugs on people and then overdiagnosing?
How about 100?
Yeah.
and that's the same model. It's not only for mental illness, but for every illness. You know, so the big pharma, in combination with the healthcare industry, their main business is, well, what we would call in business a subscription model. It's like, yeah, you keep on using and you keep on using the product. And then if you say you want to stop, it's like, no, you got to continue using it. So it's like, that means a lot of people are, on average, using 5, 6 different medicine all at the same time, and they continue using until they die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm glad you said 100. I feel like that is probably the source of it. Well, I mean, now that we kind of know where the sources are coming from, and then it doesn't help with, the other places you talked about, social media, and just too much time on a screen. So how do you first help people understand, besides maybe listening to a show like this and they go, okay, now I understand the root causes, move forward in a direction where they start to unwind from that and become better people? They start solving these problems that they're having.
Well, these, I'm I'm using your word. You say the problems they're using. The problem with the healthcare and big pharma industry is, says you have a mental illness, a mental disease, and in your case, there is something wrong in your brain, and most of the time they call it a chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
We got to give you medicine so that we kind of straighten it out. I've done the last few weeks a lot of research. There is no such thing as a chemical imbalance in your brain. It doesn't exist. And so, to put it politely, it's incorrect. You're fooled. And so, and they give you medicine to treat that chemical imbalance, which actually makes things worse. You get numb, you lose your energy, you lose your focus, whatever. And this medicine got a lot of side effects. So you need other medicine for the side effects, and then the side effect creates side effect. So that's why people end up with 5, 6 different medicine at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. So one of the there's been some studies come out, and this is one of the things I practice for being mentally just in a better healthy position mentally, where I'm not thinking like I need to go get a diagnosis or anything like that. Is I spend a lot of time in nature. Maybe you could speak on that. We have a lot of people who just sit at a desk all day, listen to this show, and they hear about my stories about going out in the wilderness and what it does for me. And then I've read this book recently called the Comfort Crisis, which kind of reiterates that about even spending like 10 or 15 minutes in nature and just taking your break and going for a quick walk, what it can do for your mental health. Would love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, well, although I call what I'm doing brain fitness, but in order to get your brain fit, you need to work on mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, environmental, and social aspects. It's not just one of them, yeah, because you might go out in nature, which is excellent, but if you eat garbage all day, it doesn't help. If you only sleep 4 hours a day, it doesn't help. If you have a toxic boss and toxic colleagues 8, 9, 10 hours a day, it doesn't help. So that is why I have a holistic approach and say, hey, you need to address all of these things. But to give some suggestion for your viewers, listeners, Lance, I start with basically 3 things. And the first thing is be kind.
Mm-hmm.
Be kind to yourself. Most people, to put it nicely, we're not kind to ourselves. We're kind of very ugly towards ourselves. Yeah? There's this inner voice inside of ourselves, which we literally call the inner critic. And that inner critic is criticizing everything what you're doing all the time. It basically never stops. Yeah? So that inner critic is, if you would put a microphone on the inner critic and you would hear what the inner critic and you would say it to someone else, they would beat you up because it's really horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? So what I say to people is the first thing is become your own inner cheerleader, become nice and kind to yourself, and then become nice and kind to other people. So that's number one. The second one is help other people. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be just help someone, an elderly person, help to cross the street. Or if you go into the supermarket, have the door open for someone else. But you can have it in bigger thing. You can start a podcast to help people, whatever. But it's really crucial to help others. And the third one is what I call diverge and converge. Diverge means follow your curiosity. Just research things, experiment with things, because you find it interesting. Because it's like, I don't know what, but it's like, it's attracting to me. Whether it's, why are there what I see over here, early in the morning, there are snails crossing the sidewalk, and an hour later they're gone. You don't see them the rest of the day. Why is that? So follow your curiosity. That's diverge. Converge is like, if you do that a lot, you get an input on all kinds of different things. And out of all that, create something. It's really important that you always create. And create doesn't have to be a business or a book or an album if you're but it can be like, create a nice meal.
Mm-hmm.
Buy some flowers and create a bouquet. Create a new morning routine. So That's diverge and converse. Those are the top three things what I recommend to people.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think people resist this stuff though so much? I mean, change is hard. What do you think the core problem of that is?
I love this question. What I'm saying, and I cannot prove it, I believe resistance is built into us because the folks who are pulling the strings in our world don't like us to change. So resistance makes it hard for you to change. So, and that is like, oh, it's difficult. Oh, I'm not going to do it. I don't have time. I don't have knowledge. I cannot do that. Whatever. So people do nothing. That is what those powers, the guys and girls who are pulling the strings, want you to do. They don't want you to change because you spend the first 20, 25 years of your life where they condition you to behave in a certain way and to be a very, very conformistic employee and do exactly what other people tell you to do. That's why it takes so long, 20, 25 years. You look at the animal world, there's no animal where it takes 20, 25 years or 18 years to be a functioning individual in society. Why is that? Because we're totally conditioned to behave in an unnatural way. That's why it takes so long. And they want you to stay like that until you retire. So that is why I believe that change in our setup as humans, maybe even in our DNA, has been made difficult, so only a few people do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. There's a couple terms that I was reading that you used often. One is called digital dementia. What is that?
Well, when we use the word dementia, a lot of people think about elderly people in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and they count. Well, actually, I took care of my mother with dementia for the last 8 years, and she didn't know who I was, or they thought I was her husband, or sometimes her father, and so occasionally they thought I was her son. That's what people associate with dementia. Number one, it's not only that, it already starts to 60, 50. And, well, digital dementia is because people are all the time on their phones and constantly distracted and have a very, very low attention span. And they are only focused on instant gratification and they cannot use their memory. They cannot write, whatever. That creates anxiety, depression, and that's with younger people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's this is I've been wondering what has been happening with it's sort of this weird dichotomy in society where it's like we have these little computers in our pockets. We have access to forms of communication, almost every version of it, right? So like I could record a little video, I could send it to somebody to give them instructions or my children or whatever. I could text, I can do a voice, I can email, I can call. It's like five, right? I'm probably missing one or two. And I can draw something, send it to them that way. Pretty interesting. And then at the same time, it seems like I'm noticing personally and professionally that then the opposite of that is like, well, we have all this access, but the communication has just completely broken down. And I think people have become some of the worst communicators ever, maybe in the history of the planet. And we have all the tools in our hands possible for that. It's pretty frustrating. So, even, and then with that too, it's like we have all this information and at the same time, then maybe we're have some of the worst memory possible. So I'm going to use that digital dementia term that you use. I really like that and pick that up. There's another one too, and it's called, tell us what neuroplasticity is.
Well, what a lot of people think, and it has been mostly not even known until the 1990s, is that people think that your brain cannot grow, expand, form new connections when you're older than 2025. That's basically where people think is like, no, you're done, accept the way it is, and this is going to be the rest of your life. That's not true. That is totally not true. Well, yeah, Lance, you must have heard there's so many people thinking like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do? That's just who I am.
Mm.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's BS. Because you can change at any time and at any age. Neuroplasticity means is that between the neurons in your brain, which are basically cells, you can form new connections. Yeah, you can create new wiring. Yeah, it's like, hey, connection with this, connection with this, connection with this. This can go on until your 90s. That's neuroplasticity, and very much linked to that is, and that is being found out. Actually, I read it a few weeks ago in a new research. Is they call it neurogenesis? Is that you even can form new cells? So, from a brain point of view, there's no argument at all that you cannot change. Your brain is constantly adapting and changing, but if you do nothing with it, yeah, well, then it won't. It's like if you stop walking, in 3 months you cannot walk anymore. Yeah, if you stop, well, doing some heavy work with your hands, whatever, and you stop using it, it won't do. That's the same with your brain.
Yeah. On that note, let's talk about aging. A lot of people, there's this gentleman that my wife follows. He's obsessed with reversing aging. I can't remember his name, but he's world famous. He's like, I got this YouTube channel. He used to be a tech entrepreneur, and then he's spending all this money.
It's Brian Johnson.
Yes, Brian Johnson. Thank you. Yes, yes. You. Let's talk about aging. Can you slow down aging? I mean, is it mind over matter? What do you think? How do you talk about it with people you work with?
Well, you can, but that relates to what I just explained. Is you got to continue actively using your brain and work on a why, on a challenge, on complex issues to keep your, well, it's quite simple. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Mm-hmm.
So continue working, work on very challenging items. Continue with your curiosity, with your learning, with creating. Surround yourself with inspiring people, which most of the time are people younger than you are. Yeah? So in that way, your aging will absolutely slow down. And that is something which you control.
Yeah. Well, let's on that note then, I've AI, right? You already mentioned it earlier on the podcast, and you were like, I had to be, you use it, but you use it carefully. I use it, but I use it carefully too. And one of the things that when I first got a hold of ChatGPT, man, I think it was like 4 years ago, it was version 1. I think I did what everybody else did. And my wife and I were just sitting on the couch and we were playing with it, and we would just give it prompts. She wanted it to make pictures of golden doodles, these dogs that she loves. So she used up all her credits and did it that way, and it was funny. We laughed, and I wanted it to see if it could just write a book, if it could just boom crank out a book for me, and it clearly showed limitations right away. And then you've seen these studies too, where there's memes going around right now on the internet where there shows like your brain on you and your brain on ChatGPT, and it shuts off. It's ChatGPT or Grok or any of these AI models. So what I've noticed is my cameraman, I have a fishing channel. Cameraman Bill, if he's listening to this, he jokes with me because I say like, it knows me. And I go, yeah, because I fed it myself. So like what I have done with it is, here's how I use it. I'm curious about how you think if people should carefully use it or not at all. I mean, it's kind of inevitable at this point. Even some of the software that you work with just automatically uses it. You don't even know it. Is what I've done is I've taken like transcripts of podcasts where I give an interview and I tell my life story in a short version, maybe a medium version, something like that. Then I'll get it to transcribe it, type it out further. This is just one example. Give it more of just like as much of my bio as I can, feed it my resume, just give it as much lance as I can. And teach it me, teach it my writing style, and then I give it prompts on things to do. And one version of that I did recently was we're going after sponsors for the fishing channel. So I made sure, like on Sunday morning or Monday morning, this was all jacked up on coffee. My neurons were firing at high speed, and I wrote the email myself in my own words, and then polished it up, and then used it to write other emails based on that first email to other corporations we were going to reach out to for fishing products and stuff like that. And it still felt human in the later versions because I started with it. Is that if you're going to use the AI a good version of it, what do you recommend if people are going to do it? Because I think you're right about like we can't be shutting off our brains. We're going to lose that neuroplasticity. We're going to age because we're not exercising our brains essentially. I would love your sort of to circle back to AI here.
Yes, there has been, I think, 2-3 weeks ago, there was research by MIT, and it proved that people who use for their writing the AI, they very quickly lose their capability to write. And not only that, they also, if you ask them, well, you sent in this piece, this article, whatever, tell me what it is, they can hardly remember the half of it.
Yeah.
So they cannot memorize it anymore. And that is a consequence of if you don't use it, you lose it. So well, I just wrote a book myself. I only used AI for research in the sense of, well, basically the only thing which I research is like, what is the health law in Hungary and what does it state about opening a hospital? Well, that's something where I need AI or a good research tool because I don't know it. But for everything else, no AI. And I did that intentionally.
Mm. Yeah. Good for you. I hope everybody listening is takes all this into consideration. If you don't use it, you lose it. You got to keep your brain fresh. And I think it's like what an opportunity in the rise of AI. Like if the majority of the population goes, you know what, I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna use it like I described with my wife and I first did it, where we just get a prompt, hey, do all the work for me, and start to get lazy up here. What an opportunity you have if you do the opposite and stay sharp. I think you're going to rise to rise above sort of the rest in that way. I got two questions for every guest that I ask as we come up
But
on
may
the.
I add two things to that, which I think are
Sure.
important. The two things I would like to add is that even people with high tech skills are currently being fired.
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft has, I think this year already laid off 25,000 people. So knowing about this technology and even knowing how to build it and how to use it is no guarantee for maintaining your job, for keeping your job. That's one thing. And I think it's really crucial. And what is going to happen, because some people might say, well, I didn't lose my job because I know how to use these tools. Yeah, but you know what your boss is going to say to you is that he says your productivity got to go up with 10x because now you can use 6 different AI tools. So expect your productivity to go up with 10x. In other words, you will be working day and night because that's what the AI does. Mm-hmm. So whether you will keep on your job and you're supposed to have a 10x higher productivity with these tools, that's not nice.
Yeah.
And if you lose your job, do these things is also not nice. And we're talking about, my guesstimate is like we're already talking about millions of people. There's not much in the news but everywhere, all over the world, people are being laid off because of AI. And the only way to distinguish yourself is to be very fit in your brain. Yeah? And create, help other people, continue to learn, adapt, be social, communicate with other people. All these things are really, really crucial. And the AI is not capable of doing that yet.
Yeah, it's not. Elon Musk was pretty astute when he said it doesn't have much common sense. So, two questions as we run up on the half hour that I ask every guest. First one is knowing what you know now, Arnold, and if you could go back in time to when you first started working with folks, and when you wrote The Art of Unconditioning, what is one piece of advice you'd give your former self?
Live your own life.
Love it. Last one is where can people follow you if they want to get in touch about your services?
My website is called braingym.fitness. Braingym.fitness. There they can find, I have at the moment 2 different products. One is a masterclass. It's an online kind of individual workshop which you can do about specific topics like we have been discussing, like curiosity, like relationships, like habits. Yeah? So there are 6 different masterclasses which you can purchase. And the other one is my 15-week training program to help you to move from fitting in to flying out.
I love it. Thanks so much for being on the show today, Arnold. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.